Genesis 2 verse 8. And the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Yeah, I will do as well a later on video concerning where Eden might have been. Again, nobody knows where Eden was. We will see a few verses concerning rivers flowing out of it, but I'm not going to go into too much detail now concerning where Eden was. The important thing is God is planting a garden here. Okay? Man will get the task of tilling land. But before man does it, God, like a good father, he is showing man how to do it. Okay? God is in verse 1, we saw that God told man to work the land, to till it. And here we see that before God ultimately let him do it, God first showed him how to do it. So God didn't create Eden on day 3, for example, when he created other plants. He made Eden on day 6, after he made Adam. Why? So that Adam can learn. Okay, God, my father, showed me how to plant something, so now I can plant. Like he gave me an example. You can't expect your child to do something. Like you tell your child, please solve, um, you know, go outside and plant potatoes, or go outside and plant rice. Right, in this part of the world, go outside and plant um, anything that you want to plant. I mean, right? You tell him, you take him outside, and you show him how to do it. And after you've done it, you can now expect of him to do it himself as well. Otherwise, you can't really expect of him, like out of nowhere, to just do something. We as earthly parents do that to our children. We show them examples so that they can follow. So how much more would God do that? Okay? So here again, what God is doing is he is teaching Adam, and we will see as well from the idea of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God is not just going to say, okay, there's a tree and don't eat of it, and I don't want you to know anything. No, God is actively teaching, giving knowledge to Adam here of how to do something, how to start planting, how to cultivate, how to till the land, because it's an example. How God did this. In today's world, we have drones flying. You put a camera in a drone, you fly over there, you can get a bird's eye view of it, right? How did God do? How did Adam see? Um, we see later on that God put him in the garden, so he was outside the garden, outside of this. There's a theory that sounds very probable, and that is the idea of that the Garden of Eden was like around a mountain, so, or the foot of a mountain. So Adam was like standing a little bit up on the mountain, so he could look down on how God is doing. They follow this from the idea that there that God, like he gave the law on Mount Sinai, right? Moses on top of the mountain, Mount Jerusalem where the temple, Mount Zion, right, where the not Mount Jerusalem, Mount Zion, where the temple was built, again on the mountain. And so the Hebrew word for mountain is Har, and the specific Bible scholar draw it all the way then through to the Armageddon, which is in says Armageddon kind of idea, right? But enough about that. It would sort of make sense if Adam was like standing on, not hovering in the sky like a drone, but like maybe standing on top of a hill or a mountain and seeing how God is making it, so that he could learn from God how ultimately to do his job as well. Why the garden is in the east? Maybe it's just because it was in the east, most likely, but it has other meanings as well. When Jesus comes back, he will come back from the east. You had to enter the temple from the east, and etc. Right? So there's lots of reasons ultimately the east, kind of, but it might just be because geographically it was in the east. Okay, but we will again come back to the concept of where this garden was. So now, after God made the garden, now God puts him into this garden. Verse 9. And out of the ground the Lord God made to spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So again, on day 3 God made plants, but here God made trees. He is making a specific tree, kind of tree, and that is tree that's pleasant to the sight and good for food. I mean, like this bougainvillea here behind me, lots of bougainvilleas here in this garden, okay, where it's pleasant to look at, right? It's beautiful, with different colors, right? It's beautiful to look at, but now I understand from bougainvillea you're not going to get food to eat. Okay, this we get from the eggplant here in the front, which you can eat. Okay, but this is now, say for example, God making a mango tree, looking good, beautiful, it's pleasant to sight, and the food is good. Okay, in this part of the world, people like to eat durians. Now durians stink. Now I don't know if God made durians there in the beginning to stink like this, so because that would have put people off from eating them at all. But we see again the care of God in this case. He didn't just make a tree that's, oh man, I don't want to eat from that tree because just look how bad it looks like. But actually the tree looks good and I want to because the tree looks so good, and then the fruit is pleasant. Right? Again, God's provision. It's not stingy. God's not stingy, as we can see clearly from this. Okay, so it's not a contradiction. It's just that these are now a specific kind of plant that is made for man to eat of. Okay. The other thing we see as well now, the tree of life was in the midst of the garden. As we're going to see, God's not going to forbid Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of life. And in the New Jerusalem, in Revelation, we see that the tree of life is back, but no tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because that tree understandably won't be necessary. Okay, so yes, the people in the garden could live, they could have eaten from the tree of life, but from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, as we will see later on, God said not to eat from that.